Welcome into the Skate Pod, episode 263. I'm Bridget Prue alongside Scott McLaughlin. Brian is not here. We didn't even ask where he was going to be, but it is a Friday, so we just assume he's off doing something fun. And I don't know about you, Scott, but I think
Brian is joining Gerard Mayo's coaching staff. It's a new era down at Foxborough.
Well,
I
I hope he still has time for us.
I think he has special teams coordinator written all over him.
Yeah, no, I don't know if that's what position I'd pick him for, but we'll find out what he got hired to later. As for me, I am so tired. The game didn't get over until almost 1 a.m.
I love the fact that all these late night games are going to overtime. Just
it's so wonderful.
Really
all of them, all three.
Yeah.
all of them. Yeah, though, especially the one that starts at 10. That one's always fun when that goes to overtime. But I'm pretty sure I turned my TV off immediately after the Bruins lost in overtime, and in under 60 seconds, I was asleep. And that never happens for me, but I was just out.
Yeah, I basically just wanted to see what Montgomery said about the overtime mix-up, which we're going to get into, obviously. But I wrote this morning and was actually in the middle of finishing up my column when the news broke that Gerard Mayo was going to be the Patriots' next head coach. So it's crazy. Just since the last time we recorded, Bridget, Belichick era over, Mayo era started.
Yeah, and I said I'll believe it when I see it, but I see it, so it's over. And Scott's been moonlighting as a Patriots reporter.
Mostly just helping out. Our guys have been all over it, but yeah, it's kind of been a little bit of all hands on deck. I think Thursday was probably the biggest traffic day weei.com had in a very long time.
Yeah, and I heard from some of the producers that we're friends with that it was just chaos with all of the everyone trying to get together highlights and the best of like moments from Belichick and all the wonderful interviews he did on WEI. the riveting stuff that he talked to us about, like Taylor Swift. But anyway, yeah, definitely go check out Six Rings with Fitzy and Hart if you want to hear more Patriots talk, because those two are great. And yeah, so.
And Mike Cadlick, he's part of that as well. So
Mike Cadlick's
all three of them. Yeah, he does. He usually does like 1 or 2 episodes a week with them. So
well, those are 3 great guys. So listen to that. Anyway, Scott, let's get to our opening shifts. We're gonna start with you because you have some thoughts on overtime.
Yeah, the Bruins suck at it. That's my take on overtime.
Okay, all right. My opening shift time now. Okay.
Yeah. No, they're now 2-9 in overtime on the season. It's crazy for like a team that's as good as they are in just about every other situation, and in theory has the talent to be a really good 3-on-3 team with guys like Pastrnak, Marchand, McAvoy, Lindholm, Coyle. You would think, as a smart 2-way player is good 3-on-3. DeBrus can make things happen. Like, they should, in theory, be a good 3-on-3 team, and yet here they are now 2-9 in overtime in the season. Yeah, after losing the last 2 games in overtime. We're certainly going to get into the breakdown on Vegas's winner Thursday night, because Pastrnak basically, Mark Stone walks right around him in the neutral zone. There's a miscommunication between Pastrnak and Marchand as far as who's coming back and picking a guy up on the back check and who's staying up ice to cover Jack Eichel, which is what they both thought they were doing. And
I feel like Pasta just thinks that everyone knows he's not the one that's getting back. So he's just like, that's you, right?
Yeah. So definitely want to get into that more, because there's a lot to break down there. And unfortunately for Pastrnak, it only feeds some of the criticism of him that surfaced this week. So we can get into that as well. But yeah, it's just baffling. Like, I remember joking earlier this season on here that the Bruins should just play extremely conservative and like go in loops around their own zone and run the clock down to get to a shootout. I actually think that might just be their best strategy at this point. Like, don't even bother trying to score. Don't be aggressive. Literally, just try to kill the 5 minutes and get to a shootout because
Well, Scott, that would require maintaining possession of the puck.
true, yeah.
And that's not really their strength in the overtime, but we'll get back to that after I hit my opening shift, which is some updates on the injuries. So 3 key injuries. Brendan Carlo was placed on IR, and Brendan Bussey was recalled from Providence since the last time we talked. Though I do believe Carlo's still on the trip.
He was as of yesterday. I don't know if that's gonna. I assume unless he needs to like undergo further evaluation, he'll probably just stick with them through St. Louis.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's out now at least for St. Louis, and then for Monday's home game against the Devils.
Yeah, but he's still listed as day to day. So it's not like it wasn't long-term IR, it was just regular IR. So that means two more games, what, 3 total. I know 4 total now. But and then also we got some very positive updates in terms of Linus Ullmark, because I was thinking long-term IR from the get-go, and we're still lacking a lot of information about what exactly the timeline is, but it was listed as day to day. So I guess maybe the worst of it, like your worst fears aren't realized if you thought that that was like a groin and that was season ending, because it looked real bad. And obviously them being out on the West Coast, or not the West Coast, but out West, we haven't had a chance to see him. Sometimes we'll get a chance to see guys and like how they're walking, because they'll be up on the 9th floor with us, and like we noticed when Lucci was in a boot or was out of the boot, or like, you know, you see crutches or different things that give you a hint as to how serious the injury is. So we haven't had a chance to see him because we are not out on the road trip, as you can see. We're in our lovely homes right now. But so that I still think that that was a really positive update, that it's currently just expected to be day to day. How much they're hiding, I don't know. I'm always skeptical, especially with goalies. Like you know, teams want to keep that under wraps. So nonetheless, we'll get to how Swayman did. And you know, a little bit about Brendan Bussey as well. And then Matt Poitras, the third injury, also day to day. And all 3 of those guys right now, they stuck on the road trip, which is always a good sign. Like if you're seeing a guy get flown back to Boston, it usually means there's either some sort of immediate procedure or more tests for more serious injuries. So I think there's positive signs in all those 3 injuries.
Yeah, certainly sounds like none of them are long term. None more than maybe like a week or two. I guess you hope, but yeah, Allmark in particular, that looked like one, especially as you see him leaving the ice with, you know, not pushing off at all, just being guided off. Like, you worry about that being something longer term. So that's encouraging so far. We'll see if anything changes there. And Poitras looked like that. He, at the very least, he looked like he was in a lot of pain. You never really know with those kind of shoulder injuries or whatever it might have been. Like it can be anything from just a stinger or, you know, like a mild dislocation where you can kind of pop it back in and just rest for a few days, all the ways up to like, you know, something tears or a broken collarbone, or like you just don't know. So fortunately that seems like it's not on the more serious side. So yeah, all things considered, you know, you'll survive if they all miss, you know, a few games. Would have definitely been bad if 1, 2, or all 3 we found out are going to be out like 4 weeks, 6, 8 weeks. Like the Anaheim Ducks just had in one tweet, they announced that Trevor Zegras and Pavel Minchikov both out like 6 to 8 weeks, and it's just like, not that the Ducks are playing for anything anyways, but it's like, well, there goes their season. Like now they're not even entertaining. Like,
Well, yeah, and
that's just brutal.
Connor Bedard too.
Yeah,
So he's out for at least 8 weeks, I think, right? Or something like that.
yeah, I think, yeah.
So yeah, the fact that the Bruins could have avoided that looks encouraging. And by the way, if this was a long-term IR for Carlo, you're missing Forbort and Carlo, your 2 best penalty killers and your best shutdown defenseman. So that kind of changes how you have to approach your game plan because, you don't have those guys. You don't have either of those guys. And then like, what's your next best shutdown defenseman? Like Wotherspoon? Like, I don't even know. Like, there's not like a good replacement for
I mean, realistically, it's probably McAvoy, but
yeah.
ideally, like, you want to be using McAvoy in more offensive situations and free him up more and not have to, bury him in the D zone. I mean, Lindholm's obviously really good defensively too.
Mhm.
But yeah, but those are guys that ideally you want to be freeing up and allowing them to be involved in offense. And, the more you get banged up back there, the more you have to rely on them to handle the defensive workload first, because, I think Matt Grzelcyk played well Thursday night. We've discussed he's had a little bit of a down season. Mason Lohrei, like, you don't want to throw heavy defensive zone assignments on him just yet. Parker Wotherspoon's done a good job. I know we're going to get to him in a little bit. But yeah, it's you have to ride your horses when you're down what they're down.
And there's one thing that was a little bit concerning to me about the Ullmark thing. And that, excuse me. And that's that the panel on Nesson were talking about it like it was going to be Swayman for a long time. And that panel includes Razor, and I don't know if Razor has any information that we may not have.
Yeah, I think, and it's possible that they're going to keep Ullmark out maybe a little longer than he needs to. Like, that feels like it would be a smart thing to do, because we know last year something happened down the stretch late in the regular season that certainly seemed to linger into the playoffs. Everyone kind of sort of acknowledged that, but insisted he wasn't actually injured. It was just like a pain tolerance type thing. But it's like,
pain tolerance means you're injured. I'm sorry.
Right,
like, no
right,
healthy
like
person is like, oh, my arm just hurts so fucking bad today.
right. Right. Because it's like I guess like a bruise would be a pain tolerance thing, like might not directly affect how you play. But in Ullmark's case, like in a lot of goalies' cases, like, I don't think it's a bruise. It's something's strained, tweaked, and that, even if you think you're fine, like, you subconsciously manage that. You don't push off quite as hard, or you don't go into a full split because, maybe it's your groin or whatever. Like, so you don't want a goalie playing through something or just toughing it out. Like, you're in a good spot. You're still first place in the Eastern Conference. Although Florida Panthers are closing fast, they're now just 1 point behind the Bruins. But you can afford to give Ullmark all the time that he needs, and that's what they should do. So even if it's like, hey, he could be ready to go next Thursday. He feels okay. He's not, but it's still lingering a little. Just rest, like, give him another couple games or whatever it might be. Like, you can use Swayman. This isn't a particularly thick stretch of the schedule in terms of games. Like, Saturday, come home Monday afternoon. That's, there's travel there, so like that might be a little tough. But then you're off until Thursday, so you can get Swayman a few starts here. And if you get Brandon Bussie his first NHL action, like, that's not a bad thing. Get the kid some experience. See what he does up here.
No, and you are like me and like a lot of people who just enjoy hockey, that we just want to know what the prospect looks like. And it's in and of itself an entertaining experience for people who are wondering, oh, this goalie seems to have a lot of promise. What's he going to look like in NHL action? So it's always something we can talk about. So we're happy to see him come in at some point, just to get a look besides what we saw in preseason. But in terms of Swayman, first of all, started off his first game knowing that Ullmark wasn't going to be there backing him up. He did really, really well. And it might have been even his best game of the season in terms of some of the saves that he had to make and the timeliness of them. Obviously, overtime hasn't gone great for him, but I don't really know what he was supposed to do on that 2-on-1. situation in overtime. But in general, this is the luxury of having two amazing goaltenders, is that you don't have to rush Ullmark back, and you shouldn't. But you don't have to worry about, the points in the standings, because Swayman's not going to be someone that you're just like conceding games if you're putting him in net for an extended period of time. So it's not like you have a backup that's barely NHL ready. It's not that situation. So take advantage of it and give Ullmark the time he needs to rest.
Yeah, Thursday night I thought both goalies were good, Swayman and Logan Thompson for Vegas. At times it was a very kind of mucked up defensive game where there were, especially first and second periods, there were some long stretches where it felt like neither team was getting any good chances, and that's not overly surprising. Both Vegas and the Bruins pride themselves in defense. Cassidy and Montgomery, two good defensive coaches. I actually thought that in the third period, the Bruins really took control and dominated play and had the much better chances in the third. They just, they did get the tying goal from Grzelcyk. Couldn't get the winner in regulation, even though they had a couple chances. But yeah, it's tough. The way the game ends, it leaves a very sour taste in your mouth. But I don't really have much of a problem with that game from the Bruins. Now, Vegas was already a little banged up. They also lost both Mark Stone and Jack Eichel for a stretch in the second period. Both came back for the third. So kind of a bit of a sloppy game all around. But I think if you're just going to look at regulation, you'd say the Bruins were probably the better team and be relatively happy with that effort, even though it's still 1-1. And then it all just kind of goes to hell in overtime.
It was kind of a boring game, right?
Yeah.
For the first two periods, I'm like, I'm tired. I'm very tired. Someone needs to hit someone. Someone needs to fight. Like, there needs to be a goal. Like, it goes into, it looked like it was going to go into overtime tied 0-0. The goals didn't come till the back half of the third period. And I'm like, for a 10 p.m. game, guys, can we just get a little bit more scoring? Some weird penalty calls as well. Especially in the third
straight up
period.
Bad penalty calls.
Yeah, it was just like so many things that were just nothing. I don't know. Maybe they were trying to expedite the process and not have us go to overtime. That's what my theory is.
I mean, yeah, three of them on the Bruins. The James Van Riemsdyk trip is a stick on the shin pads of a player who was already losing his balance. And on the one hand, it's like, I get, ref sees a stick there, sees a guy goes down, thinks it's a trip, but it's like he didn't fall because of Van Riemsdyk's stick. McAvoy's puck over the glass clearly deflected. And I'm like, I tweeted this, but I don't understand how we still don't have a system where someone can buzz down to the refs and be like, hey, that was deflected. And you correct the call and you move on with the game.
The system is Jack just screams into his microphone on Nesson, that was deflected. And that, there you go. There's your system.
But it's like the NFL has these expedited reviews now where they don't have to go all the way over to the camera and, go under the hood. I watch a lot of soccer. Most of the highest level soccer leagues have expedited reviews where things just get buzzed down to a ref. I'm like, why don't we have that in the NHL? Like,
it's 2024, guys. We got the technology.
Like, I get, obviously you don't want to review every penalty because that just gets really messy and bogs the game down. But something like that where it's like black and white, either the puck's deflected or it's not. And you could see on Nesson on the first replay that it got deflected. Something like that, it's like, yeah, like that's a really easy fix. That takes 5 seconds. And I don't see how it hurts the game at all to do that. Like, in fact, it helps the game because it prevents an errant power play. The last one was.
It's basically, it comes down to this. It's a way you can get it right.
Yeah.
That's
and then the last one, the last bad call, Danton Heinen's hook, not a hook. Like, there's not even anything resembling a hook there. Again,
no.
Like I tweeted this. It's like, if that's a hook, then there's like 45 hooks a game because that play happens almost every shift. Someone like his stick grazed the guy. I'm like, what are we doing?
They weren't calling a hockey game in the third period. That's what I'm gonna say. Scott, let's finish up your thoughts on overtime, and then we'll get to our Friday segment of who's up, who's down.
Yeah, so obviously this play that Vegas wins the game on is just a total disaster for the Bruins. Mark Stone is slowly carrying the puck through the neutral zone. David Pastrnak steps up towards him, but just does a flyby. Like doesn't get the puck, doesn't get the body. Stone goes right around him, and it's an easy 2-on-1. Passes over to Pietrangelo. Game over. Clearly, there was a miscommunication between Pastrnak and Marchand. They were both kind of looking at each other with their arms outstretched. Pastrnak thought, because Marchand was starting to move back and, come back down ice towards his zone. Pastrnak clearly thought Marchand was picking up one of the guys on the rush, and then Pastrnak was going to loop forward and take Eichel, who was the trailer, like way behind the play. Meanwhile, Marchand had already turned up ice to go back to Eichel. And so Pietrangelo is completely free down the other wing. And once Pastrnak misses Stone, that's it. And I guess a miscommunication is one thing. And, I don't know if we'll get any sort of like deep, like Montgomery acknowledged that after the game. He said, yeah, it was two players who were confused about who was taking who. I don't know if we'll get like the breakdown of like who actually should have been picking someone up and how that should have gone. But what I would say is that regardless of who was supposed to do what, and regardless of what Pastrnak thought Marchand was doing, you can't do a flyby in a 3-on-3. Like, no matter what else happens, Pastrnak steps up one-on-one on Mark Stone and doesn't make a play, just completely misses him and lets him walk right by him. And like that, in a 3-on-3 game, like you're almost begging for an odd man rush at that point. There's got to be something. There's got to be a poke check. There's got to be, I'm not saying like deck the guy, but a bump, ride him over to the boards or something. You can't just have him walk right around you, no matter what else you thought should have been happening.
Think about all the different ways they've lost in overtime this year. I mean, it comes down to like poor shot selection, not knowing who your man is to get back and cover. In a few cases, I mean, in the case in Arizona, Pastrnak had a few chances to score on a breakaway, which normally he would do, and just the Bruins haven't been able to finish in overtime, and so it's kind of become ugly to watch. It's not something you're confident in when you're watching. I'll say this. It's a really good thing for the Bruins that in the playoffs, there's no such thing as 3-on-3 overtime, right, because they wouldn't be making it very far. Fortunately, that's not something in the playoffs they have to worry about. I don't really know how much time they spend practicing it, but it doesn't look like they spend any time at all.
They do occasionally. Like I've definitely seen them practice 3-on-3 a few times. It's not a regular occurrence just because it is such kind of like a novelty situation that they're
really, because at this point it's been like a third of the game.
Right. Like, well, they might have to now, but the problem is they're in another one of these stretches where they don't have any real practices. Their last practice was a week ago Wednesday. Last full practice, not just a morning skate, was a week ago Wednesday. And they're not scheduled for another one until I believe Tuesday. So it's going to be almost 2 full weeks without a full practice. Like it is a tough part of the schedule, and that's sometimes they can be harder to correct things. But yeah, clearly 3-on-3 has been a problem all season, and certainly this week on this road trip. The Pastrnak aspect of it. Look, like I was just critical of him on that goal. I think that's fair. You add it on to the criticism he was already getting from Monday night for that shootout attempt, which we all said on the last podcast was ridiculous. Like that's,
That the
people.
criticism was ridiculous.
Yeah, the criticism was ridiculous. But it has been a fairly tough week for him. He's, as you mentioned, he also had the 2 breakaways in overtime Tuesday night. So some of it snake bitten, some of it, whatever you want to call it, miscommunication or just a bad play. He's a -6 now over the last 3 games. So that's not, he did have a sick goal in Arizona on Tuesday. Like, should mention that as well. But yeah, it's been a down week for Pastrnak. I think a lot of the criticism has gone way over the top to, quite frankly, like pretty silly places. Like this idea that you're gonna bench him for a game or something to send a message. It's like he's literally
let's just forfeit.
He's right. Like he's literally been involved in 42% of the Bruins goals this season. He has a goal or an assist on 42% of their goals. So if you take him out, you're getting rid of like almost half of your offense right there. Good plan, guys. Like, even the idea of like not playing him in overtime, so they've only scored 2 goals in overtime this year. He's been on the ice for both of them, and they've given up 9 now. He's been on the ice.
He's also been on the ice for so many against.
No, he's been on the ice for 3 against. So
it feels like it's all of them.
He's a -1 in overtime this season. There's plenty of guys who are worse than that. So, yeah, I think like 2 things can be true. You can say he's had a rough week or made a bad play there. And then, like, let's not forget he's also still 5th in the NHL in points and one of the very best players in the world. And this happens. Like, even the best players have a rough game or couple games. Like, it's just not worth freaking out over.
No. And that's because the people who started that are playing a different game than, I mean, they're playing a game and we're just kind of reporting. But yeah, so Scott, you kicked off who's up, who's down. I threw the graphic up there as because you were going on your little rant about Pastrnak. So you think that he's down a little bit over the last 3 games, which is from the start of the road trip to now to the Vegas loss. Someone else, do you want to stick with downs first?
Sure.
So this one, and this may have a lot to do with some sort of nagging injury that we just don't know about, but James Van Riemsdyk has not only been kind of invisible, but he's gotten demoted. So in the game against Las Vegas, he was demoted to the 4th line, which I believe is the first time he's played on the 4th line the entire year. So Boqvist gets promoted massively to the 1st line because Geeky has to play 3rd line center with Poitras out. And James Van Riemsdyk finds himself not next to those impact players, not next to those, your Pastrnaks or your Marchands, where he was playing in the top 6 to start the season. He is now playing on the 4th line.
Yeah, I think there is some sort of, we know he missed a couple games recently dealing with some sort of injury. I do think it's probably lingering a little bit. It's something he can play through. I don't think it's going to get worse, but there seems to be some management going on there, whether it is, rest games, not playing both games of it back-to-back, minutes management. The last 2 games he's played, he's averaging 12:41. He did move around the lineup a little bit on Thursday. Montgomery was shaking, especially in the second period. He was shaking the lines up quite a bit. It's like I saw him get a shift with Pastrnak at one point. I saw him get a shift with I think DeBrusk at one point. So there were a few different combinations they were trying. And then I think the 3rd period he was back on the 4th line. So yeah, it'll definitely be something to monitor going forward. I don't really envision him as like sticking on the 4th line, but we'll see. I did think he gave that line a little bit of jump though. Like they had a couple chances, and we're talking about ways to get more offense from your 4th line. I mean, James Van Riemsdyk can certainly help the 4th line generate more chances. I just think he also helps one of your top 3 lines generate more chances. So I'd rather have him there if he's healthy and can handle the workload.
Well, and you think about his power play to start the season, he was on the number 1 unit. And now Morgan Geekie has taken over a lot of that time playing the role that Van Riemsdyk played on that top unit, which is net front. But Van Riemsdyk also adds the fact that he can win faceoffs. So he's, you know, we're talking about two guys that are real big. Geekie and Van Riemsdyk are both pretty big guys. Whenever I stand next to them, I feel very, very small. I usually just feel very small, but when I'm near them, I feel very, very small. And so he lost that role on the first power play unit as well. So things have kind of slid backwards for him a little bit, whether it's injury related or what it is. We're not sure. And I don't think he's going to play poorly the rest of the season. It's just a good time to note that he's gone a little bit invisible recently and has had his role scaled back.
Yeah, I would like to see him back on the top power play unit at some point. Because they've been doing this kind of Zacha and Geeky sort of like interchangeable. Like they want to have two face-off guys out there, and then one's in the bumper, one's net front, and it's really been more Geeky in the bumper, Zacha net front. But depending on like what they're setting up, that can change. I don't think either one of those guys are as gifted in like that true net front role as Van Riemsdyk is. So his hand eye for tips and rebounds and his playmaking in like that small area around the net, I'd rather have him there. I get why they want two face-off guys on if someone gets kicked out of the dot or whatever, but I don't know. I kind of feel like you can figure that out. You can get someone off quickly or something if you need to. Geeky had a grade A chance in the bumper on the power play Thursday night and whiffed on the shot. So that's, you know, I don't think he's been bad there necessarily, but I do feel like Van Riemsdyk just brings more to that net front role.
I agree with you in that situation to that point, as the specific net front person. So I actually can't think of any more like obvious who's downs, but I feel like a lot of people have been kind of right down the middle, like neutral. But I can't think of, unless you have one, Scott, any more like obvious downs.
Yeah, that's kind of where I am. Like, I mean, you could maybe throw Marchand in there because of that overtime goal, but that feels like real recency bias. You know, he also has 2 goals recently. So I'm kind of with, like, it feels like there should be more downs in a week where they lost 3 games, but they all go to overtime. 2 of them are against 2 of the best teams in the league in Colorado and Vegas. I'm with you where it sort of feels like there's just a lot of neutral players. Who do you have as an up? I think there's maybe one obvious one. Just because like we didn't even really have him penciled in for any spot on the roster. But Jesper Boqvist, yeah, I think has played pretty well. Scored his first goal on Tuesday. I think that was right. He's gotten moved up in the lineup, and you know, it's not like he's setting the world on fire, but I think you're seeing him play good hockey and look a lot more comfortable in the Bruins system than than he did in the preseason, where I think we said at the time he sort of just looked invisible at times. It was like we'd come on and be like, yeah, I didn't really notice Jesper Boqvist. And then his first call up this year, he plays 4 minutes, doesn't play the second half of the game. So we just haven't seen much of him. But I think now that he's finally getting some games under his belt, you see a guy who can contribute in a few different roles. We've seen him play center, wing, fourth line, top line with Zacha and Pastrnak, which, you know, I don't really expect him to stick there, but just the fact that he got a look there and didn't really look out of place is sort of a testament to the fact that he's just playing better hockey right now.
Yeah, and he's getting more minutes because of it. Like you mentioned, under 5 minutes in his first call up back in December, but he's played 4 games in January now. Every single game he's a +1. So on the season he's a +3. He has continued to get more shots on goal as he's been up. So he had 3 shots on goal against Vegas. 2 the game before, one of them went in for him against Arizona. And yeah, he's getting more shifts as well. The Vegas game, he saw the most shifts he's seen all season with 17. Obviously, when you're playing out there with the first line, you're gonna get more shifts. I think the biggest point of promotion is just that he is going from someone we didn't even know if they were going to get out of Providence this year, to playing with David Pastrnak. Pretty quick turnaround. But it happens because Montgomery was happy with the effort that he gave and the progress that he showed since he got the most recent call up, which was like right around January 5th, or because his first game was January 6th. So he's still only at 11 and a half minutes in that game because, he didn't play on every shift with that top line. So his minutes are still not David Pasternak's minutes, and he's not playing on the power play, obviously. So that's going to bring down some of the time compared to some of the other top 6 guys. I think he handled the role well. So you go from having someone handle a 4th line role well and kind of drastically jump him up all the way to the first line. But he did what he needed to do again against Vegas. And he actually finished a few checks that I was like, oh, he didn't have to, but he went out of his way to finish some of those hard into the boards. And he's just trying to not be, overlooked this time. Like, he wants to be someone that you look back on the game tape and you're like, oh, look, he did this right. Like, he's doing these little things right. He's in the right spot. He's playing with confidence. He's finishing checks. He's getting shots through. So kind of, I think we've seen him take advantage of the opportunity he's had through these 4 games. And Scott, I don't know what you think about him potentially staying up. Like, what does that look like? Where is he at in terms of the depth chart of who goes down when someone gets healthy?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because I think, and we've talked about, Brian's been on this a little bit, and we've talked about kind of the identity of the 4th line. And, do you have to try something a little different because that line hasn't really produced? And ultimately, I still kind of see him probably ending up more in that kind of role than sticking next to Zach and Pastrnak. We'll see. Maybe I'll be proven wrong, but he does bring a little bit of a different element in terms of speed, creativity, some offensive skill there. So he could get a longer look in a spot like that, whether it's center or the wing. So he's playing well right now. I do think he's kind of maybe pushing guys for a spot in the lineup. And remember, like, they signed him as a free agent to an NHL contract. They obviously saw something that they liked or that they thought could kind of help their forward mix. And it didn't pan out right away. Obviously, he got passed by some other guys, but he's been playing well in Providence. He was on a line with Georgi Merkulov all through that hot streak that Merkulov was on. So, you need the help of your line mates to do that. So he was part of that. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I feel like I still don't have a great feel for, is this kind of just like a little flash from him and then he goes quiet and eventually gets sent back down? Or has he actually turned a corner and he's going to stick and stay, and play ahead of guys like Steen, Lauko, maybe even Beecher, and, solidify a spot in the lineup?
Well, what I have to say about that is, of those guys that you just listed, he has the most NHL experience. He's 195 games played, and Steen, Beecher, and Lauko are all well underneath that. So he's got the experience, almost 200 games under his belt in the NHL. I think that he's, through these past 4 games that he's been up, given more to the Bruins offensively than Steen has at any point in the season. So I feel like he's at least ahead of Steen right now. Lauko brings something completely different though than Boqvist, so that kind of becomes more of a pros and cons of what you want the identity of that line to be. And I do agree with Brian's point that he made last time. Maybe make that more of a fast, high speed, more skilled line with Boqvist on it than with some of the rougher guys that the identity looked like the vision for the fourth line looked like the identity was going to be real rough when they added Lucic and they have Lauko. And I mean, even Beecher at different times has been playing the role of more of a tough guy, but I think that he's passed a few people on the depth chart over the past 4 games, and obviously it's going to take that consistency to do that over and over again to keep your spot. But I kind of feel like he might stick around over Steen for the next, however long that they need someone to fill in the lineup.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Steen's been out of the lineup more than in it recently, so kind of feels like things might already be trending that direction. Another up that I had is Parker Wotherspoon. I think continues to play really solid defense for this team and has seen his minutes go up on this road trip. 20-48 in Colorado, 21-28 in Arizona, and then down to 17-27 in Vegas. But that's still a good workload. And he's not playing in overtime, so that's all in regulation. He's with Carlo out. He's gotten a lot of time next to Lindholm. There's been some changing on the back end too, switching pairs up, but for the most part, that's where he's been. Gone to his offside, played there, and has really kind of had to adopt some of those defensive responsibilities. He's been on the first PK unit. I think, was it Colorado or Arizona? I think it was in Colorado where they went to a power play late in a tie game. Colorado went to a power play, Bruins on the kill, and Carlo's out of the game. Lindholm was in the box, and Wotherspoon was out there for all but 6 seconds of the kill. He was out there for 1:54 of it, and they got the kill. And I think you see him throw some hits. He had a good one Thursday night. Again, another guy that probably had very low expectations for. Didn't know if you'd even see him factor in at the NHL level at all this season, and he has, and he's provided some important depth on the blue line for the Bruins.
He's hopped over other people we thought might be up, like Ian Mitchell, who came to the Bruins in a trade. And Wotherspoon, somebody that we got a chance to see in preseason a little bit, but we really were kind of talking about the depth chart being like the top 8 defensemen, including Lohrei and Ian Mitchell, and not Parker Wotherspoon. But he, in the last 5 games, has had no negative games. He's been either even or in the plus over the last 5 games, getting mostly like more than 20 shifts a game. And this is really the big thing, is that he hasn't looked like a defensive liability in any situation. So there's a lot of times where guys get a call up and they don't have a lot of NHL experience, and you're seeing like, okay, they're playing a majority of their shifts, they look fine, and then they have this one lapse of judgment, and it ends up in a goal, or it ends up in a really good scoring chance, and you just remember that one shift that was bad. Well, I can't recall seeing him do that. And so that really means he's doing exactly what he's been asked to do, which is kill penalties, be a bigger physical presence on the back end, and just not make any, I don't even want to say rookie mistakes, but any mental lapses, any mistakes that would end up in a scoring chance the other way that could hurt the team. And I don't think he's been a liability at all.
No, and he's 26 years old, so he's not a kid, and he comes over from the Islanders organization, which is a team and an organization that has long stressed defense. So he's learned to play defense the right way. And yeah, I'm sure there's tweaks going from the Islanders to the Bruins, but that foundation is there. And I know the Islanders have changed a little bit under Lane Lambert, where they've opened up a little more this year in particular. They actually haven't been a very good defensive team, but nonetheless, like, he had that training, coaching, organizational focus on defense. So yeah, he's been good.
His first year in the pros, like with any pro time in the NHL, was last season. He had 12 games with the Islanders. He's already up to 14 games with the Bruins. So he's past his, career numbers now, and he's at 26 games. So at the very least for him, he's trending in the right direction. And I don't, with the injury to Forbort still being, we kind of just don't know when he's coming back, and it's been pretty long term. He's going to be here for a while longer.
Yeah, and I kind of think like even once everyone's healthy, he could be sort of a perfect seventh defenseman where you plug him in any given night and you're not worried about it. He can play either side. So yeah, I could see him sticking around even when the team is healthy. Bridget, do you have any other ups? I have one last one, but it's actually not a current Boston Bruin.
Oh, that's interesting. I'm just gonna go. I'm
just gonna bend the rules a little.
Okay, yeah, sure, whatever. It's a Friday. I'll let you. So I'm just gonna say Swayman, and we don't have to keep it very long. Swayman had a great game against Las Vegas, and he's on the cusp of making the All-Star game. So I believe you can still vote for him if you would like to see him play in the All-Star game. Get on it. I'm not sure the exact URL, but literally just if you know how to use the internet. If you found this podcast, you can find
it. I think voting might have ended Thursday. I'm not 100% sure of that.
Really?
Yeah.
It feels early.
Yeah, I don't. It is early. Like it feels like they announced it early. They sent it to the fan vote early.
Now I'm gonna look.
I don't know. Yeah, I might be way off. I have no idea.
But I'm looking it up. Go ahead. Let's hear your out in left field up, Scott.
Only because we haven't talked about him in a while, and I feel like the last time we did talk about him, it was mostly negative. But Fabian Lysell has been on fire in Providence.
So that's still a Bruin, like that's still Bruins related. I thought you're going off the board.
No. I'm not going way off the board. But Fabian Lysell, 9 points in his last 6 games down in Providence, +5. By all accounts, has been playing really good hockey. And obviously the big headlines around Lysell this season were after Ryan Mougenel's comments that were very critical of him, saying, he needs to buy in, can't, basically, I'm paraphrasing obviously, but basically can't be as selfish, can't go 1-on-4 against guys. And so that blew up and got a lot of play. We talked about it. I wrote about it. But, let's make sure we also give a guy credit when he starts playing the right way and doing the right thing and playing well. And now, I don't think a call-up's imminent or anything, but from that point where it's, oh my God, his Providence coach is saying, if he doesn't buy in, he's not going to play for Jim Montgomery. And a lot of us, our reactions, well, I guess we're not going to see Fabian Lysell this year. He's way further off than we thought. I don't know. Then you get a stretch like this, and it's maybe we shouldn't totally rule out seeing him at some point this season. I'm not holding my breath. I don't think it's happening right now, but there's a lot of season left. There's still 3 months left in the regular season. It's not impossible. If the kid keeps playing well, he might get a look at some point. So just wanted to point out someone that's come under criticism who is now playing really well.
There you go. Thank you, Scott. And to tie our two things together, the last two things we said, Georgi Merkulov is going to play in the AHL All-Star game.
That's right.
And also, you still have a day to vote. It says voting isn't over. Voting isn't over. It says voting begins in 1 day. I don't know. It says literally the big line says voting isn't over. So
that's a skills thing. I don't think that's the actual voting. If I'm reading that right. I don't know.
Wait. All right, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Yeah, try. Voting closed Thursday at midnight. You're right, Scott.
No, never question me.
Skills competition, apparently. Make Swayman do something crazy. I don't know. Maybe put him up for the penalty shot trick or whatever.
What are they going to try to incorporate? What can they incorporate in Toronto? Because when they're in Vegas, they did what they did something like out in front of the water fountain there. Why am I blanking on which hotel that is?
Bellagio?
Yeah. And then in Florida, like they did something on the beach when they were down there. What can they do in Toronto? Just go shovel snow or something.
Freeze their asses off.
Yeah.
Right. Or you're listing 2 places people want to be outside, and then one that is I probably wouldn't want to venture too far out in the cold.
I always like the videos people, teams share of like how guys find out they're an all-star or whatever. Like that stuff's always kind of cool. Like Province put one out from Merkulov with it was like his teammates who revealed it at the end of practice. Seattle it was Dave Hackstall pretty sure it's Vince Dunn is Seattle's all-star. And he was like, oh, like you guys got any plans or whatever? And him and his wife are going to like some tropical location. And Hackstall's like, how do you feel about going to Toronto for the All-Star game instead? And I don't know if it's like All-Star. So like he was happy about it, but I'm like, that is like a funny question. It's like, I know you're going to the Caribbean, but how's Toronto in February sound?
And his wife is still going, probably. I know if it was me, I'd be like, have fun in Toronto. I'll be coming back tan. Remember when Jaromir Jagr got the fan vote and he was like actively telling people not to vote for him?
Yeah, Ovechkin did that.
I'm tired and I'm old. I need a break.
But, Ovechkin straight up backed out and then like had to miss a regular season game because of it.
Yeah, that's the punishment if you don't have an injury, like you don't have a good reason to not be there. I mean, to Jagr's credit, he did play. He didn't want to. He was like, I was finally gonna get a week off, guys. What the hell? I mean, you get a bonus, don't you? Not that it matters to someone like Jaromir Jagr.
Yeah, I would assume so. I think so.
And if you're John Scott and you win MVP, you used to get a car.
Yeah. That was like his biggest payday of his career.
Oh yeah, that was it. That was one time where it actually did mean something to someone, and he played like it too, because he played really well. He played like he needed a new car. All right, okay, we're getting silly. So the Bruins have lost 3 straight in overtime / shootouts. They have 1 game left on the road trip, 8:00 on Saturday night in St. Louis before they come and return home for 5 games. So we will keep an eye out for whether or not we see Brendan Bussey at any point in that homestand. Obviously, we will keep you updated on Twitter with any injury information that we find out. Scott's really good with this. I'm much worse at Twitter than Scott, but I try. But I'm just...
Well, depending on how you look at it, you're just not on as much. So I would argue you're better at Twitter.
Here's the thing. This is my thing. I don't think anyone cares what I have to say. So like I just like, who the hell cares what I think about this? that's why I'm never on. I'm like, no one cares. No one cares. So
see, I have a big enough ego that I think people do care, even though they probably don't.
I'm like, who the hell gives a shit what I think? But anyway, I also have this podcast, so I mean, if you're listening, maybe you do care what I think. But yeah, Scott has a big enough ego to take care of this for both of us. So check out his Twitter / maybe mine. Who knows? You might be pleasantly surprised. And also, if you have any questions, we'll probably do a mailbag episode here soon, or not even if it's not a whole episode, maybe like a 20-minute mailbag. So definitely comment or email us whatever you're thinking. And Scott, I'm sure you've gotten some in the meantime since we've done our last one already. So we are working on that, and we'll definitely do one like during the All-Star break because we'll have plenty of time.
Yeah, for sure. And there's like, maybe even probably next week, because there's that little gap. They play Monday afternoon and then not again until Thursday night. So like you said, even if it's like a mini one at some point. Yeah.
All right. So that is going to be it for us today. I hope you enjoy your weekend, and we'll talk to you very soon.
Hey guys, thanks for watching this Skate Podcast. If you want to see more of our videos, visit our playlist.
Not in front of a screen? You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Don't forget to follow us on social media. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment.